Imagine standing at your father-in-law's funeral, the room heavy with grief, flowers everywhere, everyone in black, and then your brother-in-law stands up, clears his throat, and announces to the entire family, the lawyer and God himself, the stocks, the accounts, the full $10 million inheritance. It's all going to my wife. She's the oldest daughter. That's how it works. Dead silence. Forks drop on plates during the reception. Eyes widen. My wife, Sarah, squeezes my hand so hard I almost lose circulation. Mark, my brother-in-law, stands there with a smug little smile, like he just won the lottery and was waiting for applause. I looked at the lawyer. He looked at me, and for a split second, I swear I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. You think this was about family tradition? About fairness? Oh no, this was about pure, unfiltered greed dressed up as the right thing to do. What Mark didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that the will my father-in-law wrote wasn't what anyone expected. And when the truth finally dropped, the whole room erupted in laughter. But trust me, the punchline was worth every 10 seconds of that funeral. But how did we even get to that moment? Let me take you back 2 days before the funeral. My father-in-law, Robert, was the kind of man who built a quiet fortune in tech stocks nobody understood, until they were worth millions. He never flaunted it. He drove the same beat-up Toyota for 20 years. He tipped waitresses double, and he loved his 2 daughters more than anything. Sarah, my wife, is his biological oldest daughter, by 3 years. Then there's Emily, adopted when she was 6 months old after Robert and his late first wife couldn't have more kids. Emily grew up calling him Dad, same as Sarah. Robert never treated them differently. At least, that's what we all thought. Mark married Emily 8 years ago. Nice guy on the surface. Charming at holidays. Always asking Robert about the portfolio in that casual way that wasn't casual at all. Robert would just smile and change the subject. After the diagnosis, things shifted. Mark started visiting more, just checking on Dad. But I'd catch him in the study, flipping through files. Sarah noticed the questions about the will got more direct. Robert laughed it off. Plenty of time for that nonsense later. Then Robert passed, peacefully, surrounded by family. At the reception, everyone was still hugging, crying, passing tissues. Mark stood up on a chair, like he was about to give a toast. Instead, he said, loud enough for the whole room, "Everyone listen. Dad always believed in tradition. The oldest daughter gets the bulk of the estate. That's Emily. So the 10 million, the stocks, it's hers. Fair and square." Sarah's face went white. I felt my jaw drop. The lawyer in the corner just raised one eyebrow. And Mark? He looked around like he expected nods of agreement. What he got instead was stunned silence, and the tiniest smirk from the one person who knew the real story. But nobody had heard the will yet, and when they did, that's when the laughter started. Go received. Generating Chapter 2, approximately 235 words. Chapter 2, the greed that was hiding in plain sight, 238 words. Have you ever watched someone you thought you knew slowly reveal who they really are? That's what happened after Robert's diagnosis. Mark didn't just visit more. He started positioning himself. He'd show up unannounced with gifts for Dad, expensive whiskey, cigars Robert hadn't smoked in decades. He'd sit in the living room talking about family legacy and protecting what Dad built. Sarah and I would exchange looks from the kitchen. We both knew what he was really after. Emily, to her credit, seemed uncomfortable at first. She'd pull Mark aside, whisper, "Dad's not even gone yet." But Mark would brush her off with that charming laugh. "Babe, we're just making sure everything's fair." Fair. Then came the comments. At Thanksgiving, Robert's last, he looked straight at my father-in-law and said, "You know, in a lot of families, the oldest gets the biggest share. Tradition, right?" Robert just nodded politely and changed the subject to football. After Robert passed, the mask slipped completely. Mark started calling lawyers himself. "Just gathering information," he told Emily. She told Sarah. Sarah told me. We didn't say anything. We figured the will would sort it. Big mistake. Because at that reception, when Mark climbed on the chair and declared Emily the rightful heir to $10 million, It wasn't just greed talking. It was entitlement on full display. And the room felt it. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, not sadness, but humiliation. I put my arm around her. The lawyer cleared his throat. Everyone turned. He adjusted his glasses, opened the folder, and said 5 words that made Mark freeze mid-smile. Actually, let's read the will. What was inside that folder would humiliate one man in front of everyone he tried to impress. And the best part? Dad had planned it that way. What happens when the person everyone least expects has the final word? The lawyer, Mr. Thompson, a quiet man in his 60s who'd handled Robert's affairs for decades, stepped forward. He didn't rush. He let the silence stretch just long enough for Mark's confident grin to start cracking. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice calm but carrying, "Robert asked me to read this exactly as written. No edits. No sugarcoating." He opened the folder. A single sheet, and a small USB drive. First, the legal part. Dry, precise. "To my daughters, Sarah and Emily, I love you both. You've been my world since the day each of you came into my life." Mark nodded like he'd already won. Then the lawyer paused. "But love doesn't mean blind trust. And money doesn't fix character." A few people shifted uncomfortably. "Emily, you were adopted into this family with open arms. I never once thought of you as anything less than my daughter, until the last 2 years, until the visits became audits, until the questions about what's fair started sounding like demands." Mark's face flushed red. The lawyer continued without looking up. "So here's my decision. The entirety of my liquid assets, approximately $10 million in stocks, bonds, and cash, go my biological daughter, Sarah, and her husband, Alex. Not because they asked, because they never did." Gasps rippled through the room. Mark laughed once, nervous, disbelieving. That's not possible. She's adopted. Tradition. Tradition? The lawyer finally looked at him. Robert had one more thing. He plugged in the USB. A video started playing on the laptop. Beside him, Robert's face appeared on screen. Thin, tired, but smiling that same gentle smile. "Hey, family, if you're watching this, I'm gone. And if Mark's standing there looking smug, well, this part's for you, son." The room went dead quiet. Robert leaned closer to the camera. "Mark, you want a tradition? Here's mine. I leave everything to the people who showed up when it wasn't about money." He chuckled softly. "And Emily, sweetheart, I'm sorry, but you let him turn you into someone I didn't recognize." Mark's mouth opened. No sound came out. Robert's eyes twinkled one last time. "Oh, and one more thing. The lawyer has instructions to donate $1 to Mark's favorite charity for every time he asked about the will in the last year." The screen faded. Someone in the back snorted. Then another. Then Sarah started laughing, soft at first, tears mixing in. I couldn't help it. I joined her. The whole room, except Mark and Emily, erupted. But the real kicker? Robert wasn't finished yet. Ever wonder what true revenge looks like when the person delivering it is already gone? Robert's video wasn't over. The screen flickered back on. He looked straight into the camera, like he was staring right at Mark. "One last thing, because I know how your mind works. You stood there today declaring, 'Oldest daughter gets it all.' You said it with such certainty. So let me clear something up." He paused, smiled wider. "Emily is my daughter in every way that matters, except legally for this inheritance. I changed the will 2 months ago, after the 3rd time you asked my accountant how much the oldest would receive, after you started pressuring Emily to talk sense into Dad." Mark's face had gone from red to ashen. Robert leaned in. "The $10 million? It's Sarah's. And Alex's, because they sat with me through chemo. They brought soup. They never once asked about the money. That's family. That's what I built everything for." He chuckled again, warm, almost playful. "And Mark, if you're still standing on that chair looking shocked, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself." The video ended. Silence for half a heartbeat. Then Emily started crying. Not loud, just quiet tears of realization. Sarah reached for her sister's hand. Mark tried to speak. This is insane. He can't just... But the laughter cut him off. It started with the lawyer. Quiet chuckle. Then an uncle in the back. Then cousins. Then me. Then Sarah. The whole room, except Mark, laughing at the sheer audacity, at the perfect, poetic justice Robert had served from beyond the grave. Mark stormed toward the door. Emily stayed. And in that moment, we all understood something deep. But the real surprise? Robert had one final envelope waiting, addressed to me and Sarah alone. What if the greatest inheritance isn't money at all? After the laughter died down, after Mark had stormed out and Emily stayed behind hugging Sarah like they were kids again, the lawyer handed us a plain white envelope. Robert's handwriting on the front. Just two names, Alex and Sarah. Inside, a short note. Kids, if you're reading this, the will worked. Mark showed his cards. Emily still has time to find her own way back. But you two, you never played the game. That's why the money's yours. Use it wisely. Or don't. Just live good lives. That's all I ever wanted. No grand speech. No conditions. Just trust. Sarah folded the paper. Tears fresh again. This time the good kind. We looked around the room. Family hugging. People smiling through red eyes. Even the cousins who'd stayed quiet were nodding like they'd known all along. Robert hadn't just left money. He'd left a lesson wrapped in one final, brilliant twist. Greed gets exposed. Loyalty gets rewarded. And sometimes the dead get the last laugh. So next time someone demands what's theirs at a funeral, ask yourself, what would the person who really knew them do? Because in our case, Dad already answered.